Now, coming up this weekend, we have a rematch in the main event. You have Vettori taking on Israel Adesanya. In your co-main event, you have a rematch in a fight that ended in a draw between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. We also have another rematch on this card. You might not know that. Eryk Anders, your boy, Roll Tide, Nick Saban's buddy, taking on Darren Stewart, and their first fight not that long ago ended in a no contest because Eryk Anders got trigger happy and threw an illegal knee. And maybe Herb Dean could have finished the fight before that happened, but we're here and now we're talking about it. Now, if we go back to our preparations for Darren Stewart and Eryk Anders, you look at it. For Anders, he's popped up to 205. He spent time at 185. He has some big wins. He has some interesting losses that maybe they were fights that I didn't think that he lost. And for Darren Stewart, he's looked great, and he went on a good run. And I mean, you look at the losses as of late. Yeah, he had that loss to Bartosz Fabinski in the one-off over with Cage Warriors because the cards got shuffled around due to the pandemic. And yes, he lost a split to Kevin Holland, but it was a decent fight. The wins, albeit nice, Maki Pitolo, he finished him, and Duran win, and there was a lot of bad blood in that fight. But going into their first fight, we both had Darren Stewart to win. In the opening seconds, when he cracks Eryk Anders, rocks him, and then does the Patrick Roy, where I'm getting out of here. Hey, Darren, why the celly, buddy? Because he celebrated, and then it went along a little bit more, and then Anders cracks him after a lot of clinch work, and Anders pulls away, and like I said, nearly finishes the fight. With all that in mind, and the fact that rematches normally favor the guy that won the first time, or the gal, or the car, or whatever it is in a rematch, I mean, what are your takeaways here? Because the dentist, you can't count him out in a fight like this, but it is tricky.
This fight... It is tricky because, honestly, Darren Stewart has enough power to knock out Eryk Anders. We know that because of their first fight. Eryk Anders has enough power to knock out Darren Stewart. And that's not something I'd accounted for going into their first fight. I didn't think Eryk Anders had enough power to really hurt and put down Darren Stewart. But guess what? Our opinions can change. I think Jonathan Martinez might be champ one day. At the end of the day, and if you want more of a breakdown, I guess the first video would probably be a better thing to go off of, because honestly, I do just have that opinion going into this fight. Whoever lands first is probably going to win. If Darren Stewart launches an overhand right, catches Eryk Anders clean, it's going to put him down, and same thing vice versa. I just think, knowing what I know now, Eryk Anders is slightly more likely to land that shot.
Yeah, I mean, for Eryk Anders, the long southpaw that doesn't really kick, and I mean, we'll see if that does change in his game plan, because for Darren Stewart, who the hell knows what gym he's going to represent? The MMA Clinic, I've got a couple of different boxing gyms, Team Resistance. If you go have a look at his Instagram, he's doing a lot of strength and conditioning training. I mean, the guy can lift, I think, what is it, 3 plates on either side. He's doing his squats. For Eryk Anders, though, this is a guy that trained out of Alabama. Now he's at Fight Ready. You might say, oh, okay, well, Fight Ready. A lot of fighters in the lower weight classes. And you're right. But I threw down a few names that I've seen him with. Eddie Cha, obviously the coach in his corner. But the Korean Zombie, Marco Madsen, Leandro Higo, who we talked about earlier on when we were talking about Ocho Peterson tonight. But I do like that out of Eryk Anders where, yeah, with Fight Ready, you do see a lot of wrestlers that round things out. For Eryk Anders, they're going to say it. It's the Jean Vellante comp to a certain extent. But again, the guy won a national championship in football, so why not talk about it? I will ever so slightly go with Anders. I mean, in terms of the odds, -110 was where they both opened at par. Anders right now, -147. For Stewart, +121. Over on Tapology, 76% of 937 total votes going with Anders. You've got 64% by knockout. 24% with Stewart. 36% have him to win by knockout. I wouldn't have this one on my card because, again, it's so unpredictable. You saw what happened in the first. Either guy had a claim to finishing the other guy. I'll go with Anders, but it is tricky.
This is as much of a coin flip as any other fight on the card. It is. At the end of the day, though, I agree with you. I've got Eryk Anders. Both guys have enough power to knock each other out, but again, Eryk Anders, I just think, has the slightly higher likelihood of landing that shot.
Don't throw an illegal knee.
Please.
Don't let Herb Dean ref this one, and if it's War Chris Tione, it could be fun. But please don't. Like, let's go with conservative referee, like Mark Smith or Jason Herzog. Love the fight. Big fights up at the top of the card. You're not going to want to miss them, so keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.